Sports. Hey everyone, I'm Steve Lowry, the editor of the High Low, but today we are talking sports, which always makes me happy. We're talking with the two people who are the experts on Long Beach sports, Mike Guardabascio, JJ Fiddler of the 562. Fellas, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us, Steve. Good to see you.
It's always great to talk to Steve Sports Lowry, you know.
We shop that for hours, and that's what we All right, I know this is going to sound crazy. There's a ton of sports stuff happening, even though there's not a lot of sports happening. So I want to start off with something your friend, my colleague, Jason Ruiz, wrote about a couple days ago, or yesterday, the Long Beach Marathon, which has not, I guess, technically been canceled, but according to Jason's story, it might not be so good. What are you guys hearing? What do you think? This is a huge event. It's not quite as big, I guess, as the Grand Prix in terms of
numbers. It's number 2 behind the Grand Prix.
Okay, so it's huge.
Yeah. It's I mean, in terms of people that it brings in and everything, I wouldn't say that as many people in Long Beach care about it as, say, a Dirtbags game or Long Beach State basketball game or something. Jade, what odds would I have to give you for you to put $100 down that the Grand Prix happens?
You mean the Grand Prix happens? The marathon happens.
Yeah, that the marathon happens. Excuse me.
Oh yeah, I don't think
there's no odds.
Yeah, there's no odds.
I could give you 1,000,000 to 1 odds, and you would not put $100 down on it.
Yeah, they haven't canceled it yet, but it seems even less than the Grand Prix because just think about it. Everybody's standing there, everybody's breathing hard, and then those like water stations where water is just all over the place. It just that just doesn't seem good.
I just think the incentive structure is a little different too. I mean, because of the way that IndyCar is a league that has TV contracts, that has everything else, it could still be profitable for the city and the league to host a Grand Prix with no fans in attendance, for example, right? We've seen races where there's not fans allowed or they're socially distanced. A marathon, my understanding of the marathon is the city and the organizers mostly make their money from entrance fees and from the hotels and the restaurants that get the money, but it's not like NBC has a 3-hour hole to fill if the Grand Prix if the marathon doesn't happen. You know what I mean? So yeah, I just don't see what we're seeing with everything from school to professional sports, right? Is what is the incentive structure? What is the pressure on overcoming the liability concerns to make something happen? For the NBA, they have $1 billion TV contract. They're going to play. It might not make sense for them to play, but they're going to go through with it. The marathon, I don't see it.
No, it's Quay Bono. I mean, it's why people can run if they want to run. In fact, you could probably run the marathon track, quote unquote, if you wanted to. I don't think there's a street on there that doesn't have a sidewalk on it, right, Mike? We've ridden in that truck a few times. I can't think of a part where you couldn't run just on a regular day.
Now that'd be a good story. Let's strap.
Oh yeah, you can do it, bud.
No. We'll find 26 sports writers and we'll each do 1 mile.
Oh God! Alert the medics.
Steve, you got the even numbers.
I want to say to the people of Long Beach, JJ Fiddler is calling you out. He's saying you're lazy and you want to go do this thing. That's him saying that. But I agree. The only way you could do it is like a Tour de France style time trial where you would send one person out at a time. The marathon would take a week and a half if you did it that way. So and plus, from what Jason was telling me, everyone would be required to run with a mask.
Yeah.
No.
Oh God,
that's impossible.
It does highlight sort of the weird contradiction of where we're at. And we've talked about this with high school sports conditioning practices reopening. At the end of the day, Dr. Fauci goes for a run, I think 5 mornings a week or something, right? I mean, being outside running is a safe and healthy activity. It's just having 10,000 people standing next to each other while they wait to start is
exactly. Hey, Mike, let's take up with that. You're going to have a story coming up, I think a little later today, right? All about that very subject, practices and school starting and all that. I'm going to let you go ahead. Tell us where we're at with all of that business that I know a lot of parents are really interested in.
JJ and I feel a little bit like if you've ever gone on a road trip in California and you've gone through a national forest, we're the people who hang the sign outside the national forest saying green, orange, yellow, or red in terms of fire conditions, right? So right now we're green on high school sports conditioning practices. They started last week on Monday. They lasted, I think, 2.5 days, and then were shut down for a couple days, and they've reopened this week. the reason they shut down, from what it sounds like, is that I think people were driving by Lakewood and Wilson, Milliken, whatever. They see kids outside, and they were calling the health department. They were calling the city, and basically ratting the kids out for doing something that the health department and school district had told them they could do. I think to me, we've had a lot of back and forth on our social media about it. I think our position, both of us, but I know my position is it's kind of much ado about nothing. We've gone to several of these practices. It's 25 kids spaced out by 3 yards each running,
Right.
They're not allowed to use a football. They're not allowed to lift weights. They're not allowed to use anything that 2 people would touch. So it's basically just exercising with your friends at the park. I've been happy for it because we've seen the kids, you can see the emotion from these kids who haven't really had social interaction. I mean, you remember being 16, 17 years old, someone locks you in your house for 3 months. I mean, it's not going to go well. So
Right.
I'm just happy that there's sort of some kind of structured, organized thing for the kids, but I don't know. They're not really worth getting angry or happy over either way, to be honest with you.
Well, to follow Mike's forest fire analogy, the winds change quickly, and I would have to walk up right behind him and change it back to yellow for some places, because I actually just got off the phone with Wilson football coach Mark Ziegenhagen, who has stopped his practices now. They're not practicing anymore, and they're just going to wait till the 20th when the CIF state and Southern Section and a couple other organizing bodies decide what they want to do with the fall schedule. It's possible they would kick the can down the road again on the 20th, but guys like Ziggy were saying, it's not worth having them out here if we're not going to have a season. I personally disagree. I'd say that it's as important to have these kids outside exercising together, being active and practicing, even if there is no fall season. I think teams should still be gathering outside safely as possible, practicing, because it has to be there's no such thing as halfway crooks, right? It has to be one way or the other. We either need to be quarantined, shut everything down, or we have to find a way to reopen and specifically let these kids be outside.
I think, because the president sort of politicized the issue around schools reopening, I think we're just seeing the same sort of like push and pull over that. And I think what JJ said is exactly right. Like this is not every issue is about the larger issue. And, with this, you're talking a smaller scale workout where, I think you have to fit public policy to public behavior at some point as well, right? These kids are at parks practicing together every day anyway. But when they're at the parks, they're using footballs and stuff, right? When they're on campus, the coaches can be there and actually enforce these guidelines and make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do. And so from my perspective, it's actually safer. I understand if you work at the school district or whatever, it might make you nervous to see it happening on a school facility. But at the end of the day, if you drive by Chittick Park, you see kids from Wilson, Milliken, Poly, you see a good amount of kids out there. And that is what it is. I mean, you're just not going to tell a 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old kid, you have to stay inside 24 hours a day. I mean, unless you're locking them in, they're not going to do it.
Yeah, because we really don't know anything yet, right? I was listening to an interview with Michael Lewis, the famous author, the other day, and he said really early when this thing first started happening in March, he called the 10 smartest scientists he knew, and he got 10 different answers to the question, when are we going to have a vaccine? So if the 10 smartest people that one of the smartest people in the world don't know, then I can't really blame a parent or somebody being concerned, trying to be overcautious, better safe than sorry, all that stuff. You can't really blame people for feeling that way right now.
That's exactly.
I was going to say to JJ, thank you for reminding me. I got to call Michael Lewis back. I fell off. Sorry, go ahead.
That's my name drop. You can't do that.
Yeah, well, I was going to say those 10 different opinions probably now 4 months later have narrowed down to like 8 different opinions or something, right? We still are in such a wide array of what the hell is going to happen. But the point that I would make, especially regarding kids and their health and fitness, is what Jill Baker, the superintendent of the LBUSD, or she will officially be in a couple of weeks, has been saying is, this is here. And you can't assume there's going to be a vaccine in December.
Right.
And if this is something we're all living with for 2 years, the toll of telling kids you can't see each other for 2 years is going to be its own catastrophe, right? So I am certainly not an advocate of what the Orange County board suggested, that there's a full reopen, no mask, no social distancing. I think you obviously want to follow all of the public health guidelines on doing things as safely as possible. But if we are hunkering in for the long haul with dealing with this virus, we also need to find some gray areas that will allow people to not go crazy. I mean, especially
Yeah.
when we're talking about children, because what we saw, some of the kids I talked to at the poly football practice, they said, this is, I have a messed up home life, and this way, or this way. And this is my family. And I haven't been able to see these guys for 3 months. So what, it might seem stupid to someone else that it means a lot to me to put this shirt on and come out here and work out with these guys. But for a lot of kids, it's a little bit of a lifeline. I would point to, the Post has done a lot of great reporting on the really unfortunate violence that's been happening, especially in North Long Beach and in Central Long Beach over the last couple of weeks. That's a daily reality for a lot of these kids.
Yep.
And so for them, the risk of, am I going to catch a virus from my friend when we're running 3 or 4 yards apart from each other? It's just structure, and it's family, and it's interaction in a safe and positive place. And I tell you, JJ and I have been covering Long Beach kids for 13 years. I certainly would never say there was too much of that going on.
Hey, I wanted to ask you.
I totally agree. Can I also say, Steve,
sure.
real quick? We also need to start ticketing non-mask wearers in public. If I can get a ticket, I was talking to my wife Vanessa about this earlier. If I can get a ticket for not wearing a seatbelt in my own car in order to save myself from harm, then I should be able to get a ticket for not wearing a mask outside to save everyone else from harm.
And that's a great transition for me to say, hey, if you have questions or you want to yell at JJ.
How much should the ticket be, JJ?
Hey, okay, what? A sweeping ticket is $75 now?
It's so much.
I can't park.
There's so
I
much.
can't park, but somebody can cough in my face?
Right.
Hey, send us your questions if you want to talk about schools, comments, predictions, whatever you want. Hey, I wanted to ask you guys, football, casts such a huge shadow, but there are other sports. I'm thinking of sports like, for instance, cross country. Now, I think those are probably can continue without a problem, right?
Well, the big question, and as you can imagine, as sports writers, I mean, I call my mom and she goes, when's there going to be a football season, right? I mean, it's the only thing we're hearing from everyone. July 20th, there will be an announcement from the CIF state. Their primary function is they set the calendar. So normally that's very boring. First football, mid-August, when's the championship going to be? Now, because they have that power, what they're going to decide is, are we canceling the fall season, which we don't think is going to happen? Or is everything going ahead, which we don't think is going to happen? Or what we think is most likely, which is from January to June, there's going to be 2 month fall, winter, and spring sports seasons, which will be a scheduling catastrophe for high schools and officials and everyone else. But I think gives the best chance to do what everyone says they want to do, which is let every sport play in the 2021 calendar, just in a different order or whatever than we're used to doing. I don't think you're going to see cross country or anything in the fall. So many schools are going in-person learning that I would be really surprised at this point if we have an event to cover with high school kids in August or September.
If it's truncated like that, Mike and JJ, are we going to see high schools do what the major college conferences are doing, which is basically they'll just have league play? There'll be no out of league play, no tournaments, just get right to it.
Yeah, and league, just making it league play also helps you keep everybody kind of on the same page. You're going to have different counties, different districts, different schools, all having different rules when it pertains to coming back and doing it safely, and what you can do and what you can't do before and after a game or after a practice. So all of that stuff is going to make it much more difficult to play people from out of the area. So with league, majority of the time, these teams are very close together. You're talking about Wilson, Poly, Lakewood, Milliken, Jordan, Cabrillo. So those schools are so close together, everybody can know what the rules are and then follow the rules, and that's not an issue.
I think to put it bluntly, like if you're an LBUSD administrator, you're a lot more comfortable sending Wilson to play Poly than you are sending Wilson to play a public school in Orange County right now, right?
It's a huge liability. Yeah.
I mean, 100%. Like if it stays within the league, then you know what the regulations are. If someone's not following them, you get to make the call to fire that person or reprimand them or whatever. Whereas if you're going to Riverside County or Orange County, you really don't know.
Lord help you if it's Huntington Beach. Anyways, I'm just saying, but send those questions to JJ. Anyways, you know what? It strikes me, guys, that I know there are people who sometimes wonder why high schools actually have sports, well, now we have clubs to do that and all this kind of stuff. It seems that now we're seeing why high schools offer sports, that yes, there is this small element that's about big time people who go to Division 1 and whatever, but for the most part, they are critical in developing relationships, kids coming together, things like that. And we see that when those things are not present, how kind of disastrous it can be for kids.
That's why I said earlier that the practices were as important, if not more important, than the games. You know, the games are great. The games are
Yeah.
great memories, absolutely. But if I'm being honest, I had a very average athletic career, and some of my best memories are
Don't
from
say that,
practice.
JJ. Don't say that. I dare you.
My best memories are from practice because that's when you're actually hanging out with your friends. You're not hanging out with your friends in the bottom of the 7th inning with 2 on and 2 out. So yeah, you're absolutely right. The community aspect, any of the kids that we've talked to over the last week and a half since they've been back with each other, that's what they're saying. It's like, it feels great to be around friends again.
I would just add on top of that. I mean, you know, there's data to support all this stuff at the high school level, at the junior college level, at the NCAA level. Students who are involved with sports have higher GPAs than students who aren't involved in sports. There's less discipline issues. There's a number of metrics you can point to in their life in terms of psychological well-being as well, that that they're really healthy. And so, people have made that point. Most of the big time recruiting at this point in a lot of sports happens through clubs, right? Tiare Jennings, who graduated from St. Anthony, is the #1 infielder in the country. She's recruited through a club team to the University of Oklahoma. But St. Anthony, she said, that's where I got to play with my little sister. That's where I got to play with my friends. And that's what's gets covered. That's what the highlight videos are of. And so I do think there's a split, but the split to me almost makes the high school stuff more important than it would have been without it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
with football, I mean, football is the most popular high school sport, right?
Right.
The one that brings the community together the most. That one doesn't have a club.
Right.
Your choice is the high school stuff because that's where it's at.
And JJ, to what you said, I can tell you when I was a sports writer and whenever some big professional athlete, I remember being at Wayne Gretzky's like when he was going to retire, and all of them say the same thing. No, when the question comes up, what are you going to miss most? Nobody says, oh, the nationally televised game, the Olympic this. It's always, I'm going to miss being on the bus with the guys. I'm going to miss after practice. I'm going to miss having pizza and whatever. It's those silly little things that really build with each other. By the way, JJ, I want you to know you have a supporter out there who not only thinks everyone should wear masks, but he says it protects us from bad breath. So there you go. You're building a community.
That has been, I'm a big fan of education through shaming when it comes to public policy. I definitely,
You're Catholic.
Yeah.
There you go.
I'm Italian. Yes.
There you go. That's it.
I like the thing that the only people who don't like wearing masks are people who've got stank breath. I mean, it's like.
All right. Hey, we got 10 minutes. I want to get to your All City Awards. Take it away. What is your biggest like Nobel Prize type award? What's the #1?
Well, first, let me just say just a quick note on the All City Awards. Steve, when you were a sports writer, the All City Awards were a long-standing tradition at the local daily newspaper here in the city.
Okay.
They went away quite a while ago, and JJ and I brought them back 10 years ago with the Grundy Gazette newspaper. We've done a special section there for 10 years now, which is crazy and makes me feel old. But we're excited because I grew up reading about the All City Awards, so it's fun to me that we got to kind of revive this. The centerpiece of it is we give an all-city athlete of the year in every sport. So football, basketball, boys and girls track, all that stuff. And then we name 2 overall all-city athletes of the year. So the best boys athlete and the best girls athlete. Those would be the best picture and best director awards, I guess. Yeah.
Oh, so what do we got? What do we got, boys and girls?
Well, we also do the moments and the superlatives, but we'll get to those in a second. But yeah, I'd also like to add that this is an opportunity for us to give shine to like the Sonnenbergs of the world. This girl has been an absolute baller on the diving platform for years. And it's just, it's diving. So there's not a lot of attention paid to it, but we can give Jenna Sonnenberg from Milliken a tip of the cap at the end of the year and make sure that everybody in every sport, every sport gets it. So I think that's important too.
Okay. So who was your top male athlete of the year?
Peyton Watson, basketball player at Long Beach Poly, has moved into top 10 in the senior to be class, has an offer from every college in the country, hopefully McDonald's All-American next year in his senior year. Had videos on Ball His Life, and Bleacher Report did a big feature about him, just a guy who sort of hit that next level. probably the biggest name in high school sports recruiting in Long Beach since Juju Smith-Schuster and Iman Marshall at Poly, I would say 6 or 7 years ago.
Yeah.
But just a guy, I mean, like it'll be whenever he announces what he's doing, it'll be on ESPN. You know what I mean?
Wow.
He's a totally top level kid.
And on the girls' side, it's the same thing. It's a totally top level kid, Gatorade State Player of the Year in softball, Tiara Jennings from St. Anthony. She's actually going to Oklahoma. And for those of you who don't know about college softball, Oklahoma is like the New England Patriots of college softball.
It's a John Wooden level program right now under Patty Gass. I believe
it's amazing.
I believe they have made like 8 consecutive College World Series, and I think they were the national champion or the runner-up in 4 of the last 5 years.
Whoa.
Yeah, and Jennings put up just crazy dumb numbers at the beginning of this year before it got cut short. She had like 6 home runs in their first 8 games or something crazy like that. So
she had 18 RBI.
18 RBIs in 8 games,
14 runs in 8 games, and was batting, Steve, .710.
So she plays slow pitch.
Yeah, right. She's got slow pitch numbers playing fast pitch. She was the widely ranked the #1 infielder in the country in high school, and going to Oklahoma, as JJ said, she also was the Gatorade State Player of the Year for softball, which was pretty cool. It's the first time that we've given an All-City overall Athlete of the Year to a St. Anthony athlete, but she obviously was, so far and away above everybody else this year that that was a pretty quick conversation for sure.
How about coaches? You give out those, right? Coaches of the year?
Yeah. We do, like I said, we do the superlatives, right? Like coach of the year, game of the year, finish of the year, comeback of the year. That's kind of our opportunity to have some fun with some stuff. Like, for example, we did the Compton football's game-winning drive that got them into the playoffs as drive of the year. We've never done that before, but as soon as that happened, Mike and I looked at each other and we're like, well, we got to give that an All-City award. That was absolutely amazing. But yeah, coaches of the year are Alan Cavanis, the boys basketball coach from St. Anthony, and Tino Nunez, the girls soccer coach from Milliken. Kind of full body of work awards for both of those guys. They took over their programs 7 and 6 years ago, respectively, and really just took them to the next level. Milliken girls soccer won their first D1 playoff game ever. St. Anthony boys basketball got to the open division, which is basically the best of the best of the best in the Southern section. So yeah, those guys, not just for what they did this year, which were also historic performances, but just what they've done for the last few years.
The St. Anthony coach too did it the hard way, which is that team wins just through like hard-nosed defense, right? I mean,
yes,
those kids bought in.
That team was one of the top 8 teams in Southern California, with their top player was a late Long Beach State signee, right? I mean, like we mentioned Peyton Watson. This team did not have a McDonald's All-American level kid, which they're playing. I mean, they literally played Sierra Canyon, which has got like, I think half the team's dad won an NBA championship at some point.
Right.
And you got St. Anthony, which is a bunch of really unheralded kids who committed to, he's got a tight rotation. You go in, if you're not playing defense, you come right back out. Definitely did it the old school Long Beach way for sure. And St. Anthony, by the way, where Jack Arian, who the gym is named after, famously referred to the zone defense as communist in the 1960s. So
I remember a period during the last season, school year. It seemed every week we said, well, that's the game of the year. Oh, no, that's the game. Remember that? You guys would show up with a video, and I couldn't believe it.
Do we remember?
And then the next week it would be top. So what ended up being your game of the year?
Our pick for game of the year was, and I think this might have been the one that got your eyebrows up the highest, was the Poly Orange Lutheran football playoff game.
Yes.
That went to overtime. High school overtime rules are the same as college. They take turns. Poly had held Olu to, I want to say, a field goal or not scoring. So then on their try, the quarterback bootlegs, runs it in for a touchdown, and it's basically a walk-off touchdown because of the way the rules are structured. So he runs into the end zone, and then just everyone was on the field a second and a half later. In a playoff game, it was definitely the most exciting game that we got to see this year.
Yeah, that game was nuts.
Sure.
All right, how about some other awards?
Sure was fun to get to watch and cover sports, wasn't it, Steve?
It really was.
Seems like it was so long ago.
Just to give you guys a plug, though, I mean, we have been running your classic series, which is just, I know it makes you feel a little old. Like, I think the last one we ran was from 2011, but God, there's so much fun to watch. And I have to imagine with this series, normally you guys are turning around stuff for us within a night. Like normally I get them like 4:00 in the morning. These kinds of things, you can go back and look at them, and it must be like fun for you to actually be able to take your time with these ones.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun to go back and look at the articles and the photo galleries from the game or games around the game. You know, you want to make sure you reference how the game between Lakewood baseball and Wilson baseball went if you're going to do a Lakewood baseball highlight like that one we did of their playoff upset win over Edison. Just an instant classic. Most of the times when we were doing these videos originally, not knowing that we were going to need to recall them at some point, and we had to think of them in like, oh, this is just another video. But I think perfect example after that baseball video, we're like, okay, this is a thing. This is an instant classic. These are great games. And yeah, it's really fun to go back and look at the articles, especially as a writer. I mean, as writers, you know, every time you write something, you look at it and you want to fix something. So going back and reading something that I wrote, which I don't usually do, going back and reading something I wrote like 10 years ago is always
excruciating
experience. Yeah, excruciating.
Yeah, I was going to say, I can't imagine a worse crime having to read your crap. Not yours specifically. I'm talking about mine.
Oh, no.
Hey,
yeah, it is.
Hey, I wanted to ask you guys, I would say this was not, it turned out not to be a great game. But it seems certainly the most anticipated event was Wilson and Polly playing football in a game that actually mattered for the first time in a long time. Did this get any kind of weird award, or was it at least up for some kind of, event of the year?
We did a list of our 10 sort of most noteworthy or most memorable moments of the year, and that was pretty high up. I want to say it was 4 or 5 or something, Jage.
Yeah, it's top 5.
It was definitely our favorite night of the year, just working. I mean, we both got to be there. The build up to it was incredible. It was, as you said, the game, you had the league championship on the line, but you just had so much history. With the Wilson Poly thing in this city is so much fun as a sports writer to have this kind of Hatfield and McCoy's rivalry that, I mean, it predates my birth by a good 90 years, and I'll never forget. I mean, I did a story on, there was a Wilson grad who designed the Buffalo Bills logo that they still use today. Also designed the Patriots logo, where the guy's bending over and all that. And his wife, I did an obituary on him when he passed away. His wife was a Poly grad. He was a Wilson grad. And she said, if like 3 people mentioned it at his funeral, you know what I mean? That it was like that they were like a Wilson and a Poly couple. I mean,
somehow they made it work.
Right.
Yeah. Somehow they got through it.
She goes, well, we were married for 60 years. We were only in high school for 3 years. I mean, like there was some commonality between the two of us.
Hey, do you think, we've seen for years now, decades, crowds going down at sporting events, particularly football gets mentioned all the time. That when I was going to school, that was a huge thing. Do you think now the fact that we haven't had it, or we might not have it, that eventually when it comes back, at least in the beginning, we're going to see some huge crowds?
I'm laughing because I believe it was a year and a half ago, I did an article where I wrote, people have stopped coming to games, crowds are smaller than ever, but like a pendulum, it will swing back.
We just don't know why.
We will not take this for granted anymore. People will come back to live events. I feel like the genie who accidentally rubbed the lamp. I'm sorry, everybody. Yeah. That's my bad. But yes, I absolutely do. I don't think it's just going to be live sporting events. I think it's going to be everything. But
you wish for we're
going to get back outside and really love to be back outside. It's around other people.
Yeah, it's your monkey's paw wish. You wish for $1 million, but you didn't want it as an insurance settlement for a car accident that paralyzed you. Is it like that kind of a deal?
Example.
Right. Yeah, I think that's exactly right. We actually had a conversation with Rob Wygod, who's the Southern Section Commissioner, about that a couple months ago on our podcast. That I mean, well, let me put it like this, Steve. You like following, the high school football. You
right.
said you enjoy our videos and stuff. You haven't asked us, hey, let me come out to this game. Right. I can see you very much in August being like,
yes.
Not August, in January or whatever, like, can you get me on the freaky sideline for a live sporting event, right? I mean, I think we're all stars.
Absolutely, yeah. Fellas, thanks for this. By the way, JJ, is your middle name Pandora? I was wondering, maybe not.
His middle name is Firebrand.
Fellas, thanks a lot. We appreciate this. Everybody, thanks. I'm not sure what we got going on live chat tomorrow, but I know it'll be fantastic. So join in. By the way, some love for Jenna Sonnenberg from Stanford Middle School. Go Stanford. What's Stanford's nickname?
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks. Way to go. All right. Hey, thanks, guys. Thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, guys.
See ya.